Today's lesson is on surface area and volume of a sphere. We start with what the definition of a sphere is. It's the set of all points that are equidistant from a given point, which means that given one point, every point in the world that is the same distance from that point is part of the sphere. The distance that the points are from the center is called the radius, and obviously the point in the center is called the center. Since spheres have no sides or bases, they don't follow the same surface area and volume formulas as the other figures that we are going to talk about, the figures that have polygonal sides. The formula for surface area of a sphere is you take 4 times pi times radius squared. Notice the pi r squared part is just the area for a circle. The way I look at that is that if you take a sphere and you split it up into 4 sections, each one of those sections would have about the same area as the center circle would. So if you take the area of the circle and take it times 4, that would give you the area around the outside of the figure. So the surface area formula is 4 times pi times radius squared. Notice the only value that you need from the sphere is just the radius. It's the only value you need. The volume formula of a sphere is 4/3 times pi times radius cubed. In order to find the surface area in order to find the volume of the sphere, you'd take 4/3 times pi times radius cubed. If you don't know how to raise something to the third power in your calculator, usually how that works is that you would take, for example, if the radius was 4, you would do a 4, and there's either a y to the x key, that means raised to, or there's a caret key, that means raised to, and then you would put in 3. Either of those would raise your value to the third power. That's what you'll need to use in order to find the volume of a sphere. In order to find the surface area of a sphere with a radius of 6, we would plug it into the surface area formula. So we would do 4 times pi times radius squared. And since the radius is 6, radius squared would be 36. That would give you 4 times 36 is 144. So your exact answer would be 144 pi square units. You know, you could also find the rounded answer by taking 144 times pi. To find the volume of a sphere with a radius of 6, you would take 4/3 times pi, and 6 cubed, 6 raised to the third power, is 216. So 4/3 times 216 is 288. So your exact answer would be 288 pi, and if you wanted the rounded answer, that would be in decimal form. I noticed that this is a 2, that should be a 3. Since volume has 3 dimensions, it should be units cubed. The other way that we're going to work with these formulas is working them backwards from some of our other formulas. For example, if I give you the circumference is 20 pi, how can you break that down to get to the radius so that you can use it forward in finding the surface area and or volume? So remember that the circumference formula is diameter times pi. So in this case, since the circumference is 20 pi, the diameter is 20, which means that the radius is 10, and then you would use that and stick that value into the formula for whatever you need, in this case, surface area. So you do 4 times pi times 10 squared.
Ms. Jacobson, call the high school office, please. Ms. Jacobson, call the high school office, extension 206. Thank you.
If your surface area formula is 500 pi in exact form, and you need to work your way back to the radius so that you can find the volume, you would simply work the surface area formula backwards. That is 4 pi radius squared equals 500. So you would take 500, divide by 4, divide by pi, and then you would take the square root. And that's how you would get the radius. That's how you'd work your way back to the radius, which would be 11.2, and then you'd stick that value into the formula for volume. So you need to undo everything that's being done to the radius, because that's the only value you need in order to find the surface area or volume. Okay, if I give you the volume and you have to work your way backwards, remember the formula is 4/3 pi r cubed, and in this case it equals 5,000. So I would divide by 4/3, I would divide by pi, and then to get the r alone you'd have to do what's called the cubed root. On your calculator there should be a button that looks like this. So after you divide by the 4/3 and divide by pi, then you'd take that value and put it under the cubed root. If your calculator does not have that root, it has a value that looks like this. And in that case, you'd plug in 3, and then you'd hit that button, and then you'd plug in the value. However you do that, you should come up with 10.6 for your radius, and then you stick that into whatever formula you need. That is the end of this lesson. The homework is as follows.